You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 250. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Episode 250. 250 episodes. I'm not going to lie. I paused to do the math on this, and that is apparently 4.8 years, almost 5 years of podcasting. And when I paused to figure this out, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. And what's even more fun is that some of you have been hanging out with me this entire time from the very beginning. And whether you are a new listener or you've been with me since way back in 2019, I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. You are busy being awesome. So to celebrate 250 episodes, I thought I would shake things up a bit by sharing part of a coaching session from We're Busy Being Awesome. This is my small group coaching program for ADHD brains. And at the time of this recording, we've just wrapped up the first month of the program. Now, for context, the program divides into 4 months, and each month has a different theme or a different focus. So the first month really lays the groundwork as we learn how to slow down and practice the pause and create awareness around what specific obstacles are getting in our way. And then we clarify which supports we're going to put in place that we learn throughout the remainder of our time that we work together. Because in months 2, 3, and 4, we dive in. We learn those practical strategies and tools that your ADHD brain needs to thrive. So in month 2, you learn how to prioritize both in the big picture, but also your daily tasks. And you learn how to create that ideal schedule that works for your ADHD brain with the right level of structure for you and that makes room for these priorities that you've identified. Then we get to month 3, and that's where we learn how to take action on that plan you made for yourself. So we learn how to initiate tasks, how to make confident decisions, how to reduce our procrastination and move through any of that resistance so that we can get started with less friction. And then in month 4, we learn how to follow through. We learn how to stick with that plan and maintain our commitments all the way through to completion without jumping to the newest idea or distraction so that we can tie it off with a bow, call it done. We learn how to actually check the project off the list without letting perfectionism or imposter syndrome keep us stuck. So the call that we're about to explore is the last session of month 1, which is all about learning how to pause and create awareness of the specific obstacles in our way. And we find and we start questioning the beliefs that are keeping us stuck so that we're open and we're ready for the strategies that we're going to learn in the months ahead. And the specific topic that my client brought last week, that's the call that I'm sharing with you, what they brought was just so powerful, so relatable to the ADHD experience that I knew I had to share it with all of you on the podcast. The topic that we're going to explore is what we can do when we've fallen off track, especially when unexpected events or circumstances kind of challenge our routine or our plans that we've made. How do we get back on track? How do we initiate those tasks with less resistance? So if you have ever felt like you're constantly starting over or you're struggling to regain your momentum after getting off track, you are not alone, first of all. And this episode absolutely has your name on it. And what really sets this session apart is that we focus first on our mindset and the stories that we're telling ourselves before we dive into specific action steps. Because let's face it, we can all try all the different strategies in the world. But if we are stuck in this cycle of self-doubt and overwhelm, making any progress can feel next to impossible. That's why so many of us say, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. It's because we haven't laid the groundwork. And that's what we're going to do in this first session that you get to listen to. So as I'm coaching my client about getting off track with her goals for the coaching program, I invite you, as you listen, to drop into the client's seat. So you might not be struggling with the exact same topic, but my guess is you have an area in your life where your brain is thinking, oh no, I've dropped the ball, or I've fallen off the wagon, or I've gotten off track. And as I ask my client different questions, I encourage you to answer those same questions for yourself while thinking about your unique situation. Be the client as you listen and get this coaching for yourself too. Now, in the session, I want to give you a little bit of context. One of the tools that I use is a coaching model based on the think, feel, act cycle. So you're going to hear me asking my clients, okay, what is the thought you have here? Or what if we put XYZ in the action line? Essentially, what I'm talking about here is one way that we can understand how the human brain works, which is that as humans, we have a whole lot of thoughts. We have thoughts all the time, all day long about everything we encounter. And those thoughts in our brain release chemicals that then create feeling in our bodies. Okay? So those feelings in our bodies make us do something. They make us act in a certain way. So our thoughts create our feelings, which drive our actions. So when you hear me asking my client about their actions or how they're feeling or what they're thinking about, that's what I'm referring to. And of course, fill that in for yourself as well as you're getting the coaching. And as always, if you want to dive into this further, I would love to work with you on it. The next cohort for We're Busy Being Awesome will happen in August. So if you're listening to this in real time, I encourage you to pop over to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group and you can add your name to the waitlist there and you will be the first to know when enrollment opens so you can get in there. And then similarly, I have a waitlist for one-on-one coaching as well. So if you are looking for one-on-one support, you can head to that link in the show notes, sign up for a time for us to chat and talk through where you're at, what changes you want to make, and we can see if what I offer in one-on-one coaching would be a great fit for you as well. So whatever you're looking for, you can head to the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/coaching for more information there. So with all of that said, let's dive in and look at how critical it is to explore our thoughts and how powerful it is when we are willing to be uncomfortable as we take that next step forward in our growth.
So I would say one of my biggest challenges is, and it's happening again with this program, I make a plan and I followed your plan at the beginning, like with the first week where I can't remember the specifics, but you make different types of goals depending on kind of
like the minimum baseline.
You're like,
yeah.
So I did that and I outlined it all out. And so I started, very committed. And then last week I had a photo shoot that I've been planning for since January. It's a big deal photo shoot for me because it's partly for my business photos to redo those. And then it's also, I'm turning 50 this year, so it's also a gift to me. It's a local photographer. She's an award-winning photographer. I've been following her for years, so it was very exciting, but it was a lot of pressure. I'm sure all of you can imagine what it would be like if you're going to have a photo shoot. There are lots of thoughts and feelings that come up, insecurities, all of that kind of stuff. So I was I was dysregulated, and then I was trying to get prepared for that. So I have this like mental shift when there's something that pops up. So I can be on a routine and something will pop up like the photo shoot, or we go on vacation, I get sick, something happens with work, and then I get like off the train or off the track. And then I will come to an awareness that I need to get back on the track, but I will have the memory issues of where did I leave off? And it's just the cognitive resources that it takes. It's like starting all over again. It's that initiating it all over again, getting back on track. And then all of the feelings, maybe this plays into the beliefs too, but it's all of the feelings about, can I do this? Oh, I did it again. Because I really hate when this happens. But if I'm honest with myself, it's probably always going to happen. And I just need to have a strategy for getting back on track. So that's basically it.
Yeah. I so appreciate you bringing this because for sure, this is the story of, I think, every ADHD brain life. But I think humans generally, because what we're talking about here is transition. Something new happens. We are focused on something else. It kind of throws us off our groove. And then we want to bring ourselves back. And then we're in this uncomfortable transition period of, oh, yeah, what was I doing? What was working? And we have to just kind of clear the fog and remember what was going on. And I think it's important to focus on the thought or the idea that, oh, yeah, of course, nothing's gone wrong here. This is what happens to people when things come up and our routine shifts. Yes, right on time. This is that part in the journey. Now what? And then to your point, what do you want that resource to be to help you get back into your groove? Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about specific strategy, but I actually would first, if you're open to it, would love to look at some of the beliefs because you do have some here that I think are worth investigating. A couple that I wrote down are I have to start all over again. I can't do this. I did it again.
Mhm.
I hate it when this happens.
Mhm.
Okay. Are you really starting all over again?
No. No.
Tell me why.
Um, well, see, I think that's what's frustrating. I'm not starting over again, but I mean, some of it is kind of like the memory. So for like this program, if that's what we're talking about, I mean, I've already done all of the work. I've already done it. I was on the train. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I hopped off. I'm still going in the same direction. I just paused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that that's the first one for all of us to remember is if your brain is like, you've fallen off the wagon, you've gone off track, you've dropped the ball, whatever the story is for you, it's like, okay, maybe. First of all, I don't even believe that there's a wagon that we can fall off of, but many of our brains think this. And then we're like, now I have to start all over. But that's not actually true because even if you didn't do any of the work, and you have, but like, even if you hadn't, you've heard some of the calls. You actually know how to log into Podia. Like you're literally not starting all over because it's not your first rodeo. You've been here. Right. And to remind our brain, oh, wait, hold on. That is actually just factually not true. Okay. So that's the first belief. And then you mentioned, I did it again. I hate it when this happens. How come?
That's a good question. Um, Ideally, I would like to start a plan or a routine. I want to start it and do all of the work. And I don't want to have to do this stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. And I know I'm not supposed to compare myself to other people, especially neurotypicals, but I look around and I don't see anybody else having these issues. It just takes so much effort for me, depending on what it is. It takes a lot of effort to get back on or start again,
Mhm.
or get back on track, whatever kind of analogy we want to use. And I do think that it triggers my overwhelm, which then triggers my procrastination. Or if it's like a big long term goal I'm working on, like my business,
Mhm.
then it will trigger feelings of failure or feelings like you've been trying to do this for so long and you keep getting off track and you have to start all over again. And I start questioning myself. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I just want to highlight here because I think it was such a great example of what we have. So we had in the feeling, you said overwhelm, right? It triggers overwhelm. In the actions, we procrastinate. The thought is, I have to start all
Hmm.
over. Okay. So I have to start all over. We feel overwhelmed. So we're procrastinating. We're not getting started, that kind of thing. And the result
Hmm.
that we have down here is that either if you're like me, I don't start or I prolong the starting even more because I'm procrastinating or working on a bunch of other things, or I start a new routine instead.
Hmm.
And then I get halfway through and I never do return to the original thing to help me
Hmm.
build the muscle of returning and getting back on track, getting back on the wagon, on the saddle, whatever the thing is we're getting back on.
Hmm.
right? I like to think about these moments when we shift away from our regular routine actually as an off ramp, as if you're like on a road trip, right? So you're on a road trip, you need to stop for gas and lunch, right? So you pull off at a rest stop, but it doesn't mean that you've like quit the trip. It doesn't mean that you've decided to stop taking your road trip. It means you stop for lunch and a break. And then we have our on ramp that allows us to get back onto the fast moving highway, but we need supports again, which is what you're identifying. What are the supports that allow us to get back on that on ramp without expecting us to go from zero parked at the rest stop to 80 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, whatever we're driving?
Mhm.
So we want to figure out what that on ramp is. But the first thing is to realize that what's really holding us back is when we're telling ourselves, now I have to start all over again.
Mhm.
Because we're not actually starting all over. We paused. We went and got lunch. I was like, I need some Subway.
Mhm.
Okay. What else could be true about returning to the routine, the course, the project, the habit? And people feel free to drop it in the chat if you have other thoughts, like what else could be true? What else could we think when we've stopped following the plan that we created? What else might be true?
One thing that comes to mind for me is that in the context of the example I'm using of this program and how I got off the ramp, now I'm thinking now would be a good time for me to revisit like my plan and check in to make sure it's still working for me.
Yes.
Because maybe I made the plan, I wasn't thinking ahead or thinking about, these times where I'm off ramp and I got to get on ramp again. And maybe
Yeah.
there's something I could include in that process or that planning. If I'm getting off ramp, I need to make a note that I'm getting off so that when I go back on, I know where I left off. But that only works in some contexts. That works in planned, like I know I'm going on vacation, but if I get sick or something comes up, then I don't think to write down, okay, I'm going off ramp now. When I go back on, this is where I left off.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Yes, yes. That is a great support to leave yourself a note. Like if you are going on spring break or whatever, to leave yourself the notes. That is a really supportive approach. Let me see what else people have dropped in here. Checking the map before getting back on the road. Yes. I love that one. So we're not like, oh my gosh, I've fallen off the wagon and now I have to start all over. It's, oh, wait, no, let me just recheck the map. And if we combine that with, do I still want to be taking the same path? Like, do I still want to do the same route? Because now that these new developments have come up, or I didn't realize there was this detour in the road, which was my photo shoot, do I have the capacity this coming month to stick with these same goals? Or do I want to shift because now I remembered, oh yeah, I have this thing coming up next month. So I'm going to shift what my minimum baseline is to show up to the calls or watch the replays. That's the minimum baseline. And then my regular goal is to show up to the calls and then make it to one body double session. And I might do some journaling there. And then my push goal will be to maybe do the focus on this once throughout the month and kind of realigning. And this I would love for everybody to feel that freedom to reassess those goals. I mean, the way that the program's broken up, you could do it every month with, okay, we've moved out of the self-awareness and beliefs. We're moving into planning starting next week. What do I want my 3 goals to be here? Right. So please do feel that freedom to adjust and reassess as needed. Because again, just as with everything, this is the first time you've done this course. You don't know how long things take. You don't know how much it demands. It's new, just like whenever we do something new. So giving yourself that permission to readjust and reassess when you're learning, oh, this actually takes a little longer. This is a little bit quicker. That sort of thing can be helpful, right? So allowing yourself to reassess. So when we think about this, and for everybody, I would love for you to be creating your own model with whatever routine or thing that you've maybe fallen off before or that you are currently trying to get back on the ramp, right? Write that in your circumstance, write that thing. And then what we want to do is ask ourselves now, okay, what do I want to have happen after I have gone for lunch? After I went to get Subway, what do I want to happen? Because what we're not going to do is say, I never go off track ever again, because that is not reality. That is fantasy land. We are humans, not even humans with ADHD. We are humans, and this happens. Okay, so we want to plan for that. So when we inevitably go off track, what do you want to create? What is the experience you want for yourself? And if you're willing to share, I'd love to put yours in the result line.
Okay, I don't know how to summarize it, so maybe you can help me. But I'm thinking basically, I just want to, I guess, just pick up where I left off. I mean, I just want to continue. I can reassess and see if my plan that I set, the minimum baseline, the push goal, and all of that, if that still works for me. Essentially, I just want to get back to it, refocus.
Yep.
So,
Oh, I want to read. Is there something in there about wanting to know when the next thing is? Oh, so like looking ahead or something? Planning ahead for what's coming up? Is that what you mean?
Kind of, because I think when this happens to me, say if I'm sick for one day, when I come back, there's all the things that I was going to do on the day that I'm back and all the things that I was going to do when I'm sick. And that overwhelm makes me think I don't know where to start.
Yes.
So getting back on track would be, what's the one thing that would get me on that on-ramp back in the right direction? And I was just thinking then when I was trying to think of what her thought was, I was like, what would mine be? And that's the one that was coming up. It was like, what's just the one thing? Because I think if I just knew one thing, everything else would get going because I'd get that dopamine hit from just starting. Because I think the overwhelm puts me in that like pivot of, oh, I don't know which one to do and I'm so far behind and there's also so much to do. And yeah, I just wanted to offer that.
Yeah. It makes me think of what's the domino that would knock over and start the thing that we've set up? Yeah. No, does that land with you?
it's kind of funny how much it lands with me. Actually, my phone screensaver last year was focus on the one thing. So yeah, she's like totally speaking my language. That's what happens to me. I really struggle with task initiation. It's really hard for me to get started. I'm getting better at it because I'm trying to utilize some strategies, but that's one of the strategies. But like any of this, like all of this you're talking about, it's, I have the awareness, but I'm in the phase where I'm trying to remember to practice. Oh, I got to utilize a strategy now. I'm feeling overwhelmed. So it's not automatic yet. So I appreciate the reminder. So focusing on the one thing. So like with this, the one thing would be, I just need to go back and look at the plan that I created 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
That would be like first start. And then, usually if I can just start with the one thing, this is sort of a confidence thing. I have to remember that if I can just get started with that one thing, I usually will know what the next thing and the next thing and the next thing after that is. It's just the hardest part for me is getting started. So,
yes,
which is what all of this getting back on track is about. It's initiating, it feels like I'm having to start again, which I've already explained, but it's initiating, execution.
I wonder too if in the action line, we also have something about anticipating and questioning when my brain says, I have to start all over, or here we go again, or whatever those stories are that we have, because we all have slightly different ones, and pausing with that and being like, but is that actually true here? So I wonder if there might be in the action line questioning the thought, hold on, is that actually true? Maybe what we really need to do is look at the plan that we created 2 weeks ago and then stay open to knowing once the ball starts rolling, we're good. Or that once I knock over that first domino, the rest keep falling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's good.
So then what do we need to feel in order to question the thought, look at the plan you created, stay open, letting the dominoes fall? What do we need to feel? And it might be a couple of feelings.
The first word that's just popping out at me, as I said, I just said it. I just need to be confident in myself because I've done some of this work. And so I just disclosed that I have the awareness about myself that if I do just focus on one thing and I get started on that, then I know where to go from there.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we want to feel confident. And one of the thoughts I think that's going to help you feel confident is when I focus and get started, I always know where to go. There's something in you being able to look to past evidence, which we can't always do if it's something that's new to us. But in this situation, you actually have that in your favor of, hold on, I know that when I focus on one thing and I get started on that, I know where to go. I know what to do next. And I wonder too, and this is where I mentioned we might have more than one feeling, where the feeling might also be, it's not super positive, but it might be willing. It's kind of like a neutral where I'm willing to be in that suck for a little bit. I'm going to open up the thing and I'm going to notice my brain saying, you fell off the wagon, you went off track. I'm willing to hear that because I anticipate it, breathe through it, and then I'm going to remind myself, but actually when I get focused and I remember what that one thing is and I get started on it, I know where to go. And this is part of being human. Because honestly, how boring would it be if we just had one routine and we just stayed on track with it all the time? Gross. We would literally never do anything but that. No, thank you.
That's good. That's good. I might even qualify that by saying willing to be uncomfortable because I hate being uncomfortable. So, and all of this stuff that we have to do is uncomfortable.
And we will talk about in not this coming month, but the next month. So if anyone wants to skip ahead, feel free. But this willingness to sit in the discomfort and looking at being in the emotion, being with that feeling, it could be helpful. Ooh, that's a great point. And then my brain says, but what's the most perfect one thing? Yes. Now, this is one where you can play with it a little bit, right? Because actually the perfect one thing is literally anything. Because going from 0 to 1% is infinitely harder than 1 to infinity, right? Because you're going from nothing into something. And so it might be, oh, the perfect thing is literally anything I can do that's related to this task. Now, you could also get more specific if you want to. We talk about this in ways that we can prioritize our daily tasks. We can prioritize based on our levels of energy required, or I like to prioritize based on levels of focus required. So there's ways that we can play with that. If you want to get specific about, but what's the perfect one? And your brain wants rationale behind why we're choosing it. Or you can be like, literally the perfect thing is doing anything. Because I know, back to this thought, once I get started, the dominoes fall. What did I tell you? Was that session relatable or what? Let's do a quick recap, all right? So throughout this call, we explored the challenge of getting back on track and initiating tasks. We first looked at our thoughts around getting back on track, our off-ramps and our on-ramps, and the fact that cleaning up how we think about these transition points is absolutely critical before we put in any strategies, before we dive into the action. Because when we acknowledge and question these stories that we're telling ourselves, we set the stage for some truly meaningful progress. And then throughout the session, we explored the think, feel, act cycle. And we understood how our thoughts are shaping our feelings and driving our actions. And by cultivating this awareness and challenging some of our thoughts, my clients started empowering themselves to break things down and take those initial steps forward, even in that face of discomfort. So key takeaway number 1, before implementing strategies, it is crucial to address our mindset. As ADHDers, we will absolutely deviate from our plans at times. Not only as ADHDers, I mean, this is just part of being human. It's going to happen. But without a supportive mindset in place, we can unintentionally pitch a tent and start living at this rest stop rather than just hopping off for a quick snack and refueling the car before we hop back on the highway. So we need to have that supportive mindset that allows us to get right back on track without derailing ourselves. Key takeaway number 2. Growth often requires stepping outside of our comfort zones and being willing to sit with that discomfort, right? Growth includes discomfort. When we do something new, the brain is going to get uncomfortable because we're crafting new neural pathways. And growth means doing something new. So by acknowledging and accepting the discomfort of growth and learning how to be with that discomfort in a supportive way, which is something that we do dive into later in We're Busy Being Awesome, when we can learn how to do that, we pave way for meaningful, lasting change. And then finally, key takeaway number 3, once we have the awareness and we've identified the supportive thoughts and the feelings that we want to fuel our actions, that is when we can start small with manageable steps that allow us to build momentum and propel us forward. That is when we can knock over the first domino and get into action. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you are ready to take these concepts and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to support your ADHD in a way that's best for you, I invite you to check out today's show notes where you can learn more about how we can work together, both in my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome, and through one-on-one coaching. Also, if you want to learn my simple step-by-step approach to locking in a routine and making it stick, be sure to check out my free course, The ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.